The tension in the Middle East has reached a new level. A hitherto regional conflict rekindled with a dangerous spark, and this time this spark came in the form of audio. In recent weeks, Syria has dived even deeper into chaos. The Druze community, a religious minority with strong identity and historical presence in the south of the country, was the target of coordinated attacks by radical Sunni militias. The reason? An alleged audio of highly dubious origin, attributed to a Druze leader who would have insulted the Prophet Muhammad. What looked more like a virtual provocation was quickly turned into justification for a wave of brutal violence. Villages, usually removed from major clashes, were invaded by armed extremist groups. In a matter of days, more than 100 people died, including women, children, the elderly, and members of the Syrian security forces that tried to contain the attacks. The major Druze Soweto region became a battlefield. Public buildings were set on fire, looted stores and streets occupied by strongly armed combatants. The residents themselves began to organize themselves in local self-defense militias, recalling the times when the Druzes fought isolated by their own survival. Amid chaos, the silence of the new Syrian president, Ahmed Allah, caused revolt. Former jihadist leader, Allah came to power after the collapse of the Bashar al-Assad regime and has since been seen with extreme suspicion by the country's religious minorities. Christians, Alawites, and especially the Druzes fear that the new government is promoting a kind of silent religious cleansing, allowing radical groups to impunely attack anyone who does not follow Sunni orthodoxy. The president's fiery speeches and his refusal to condemn the attacks only increase the sense of abandonment and persecution among the Druze. Meanwhile, on the other side of the border, the massacre echoes caused immediate reactions. In Israel, where there is a significant population of Israeli Druze, the protests were intense. Citizens closed roads, blocked cities' entrances, and demanded that the government act immediately. "Protect our brothers," the posters and screams said in the protests. Families are divided by geography, but united by the blood. And when a Druze suffers in Syria, his relatives respond in Israel. Druze identity does not respect borders, and popular revolt made it clear that the community will not passively accept the death of its family members. Israel's response came with accuracy and warning. Israeli authorities, pressured by the internal manifestations of the Druze community and political allies sensitive to the cause, decided to act directly. Combat planes conducted selective airstrikes against strategic targets in southern Syria. The explosions occurred in areas near the bases of Sunni militias involved in the attacks on the villages. The message was clear. Israel will not tolerate aggression against the Druzes and is willing to cross borders to protect this minority, even if it means increasing stresses with Apricot. The attacks caused shock. Although not officially claimed, international analysts confirmed through satellite images and interceptions that were coordinated by Israel's defense forces. It was the first time in months that Israel attacked such a sensitive area, close to governmental zones in Syria. The movement not only caused casualties in the militias involved, but also sent a direct signal to the new Syrian government, led by Ahmed Allah. The age of impunity is over. Meanwhile, in Soweto, the mood is insurrection. The population, angry with the abandonment of the central government, took the headquarters of the local government. In a symbolic and powerful act, they overthrew the official flag of Syria and raised the Druze flag at the top of the building. Images of the moment viralized on social networks and became a symbol of resistance. It is not just a security crisis, it is a national identity crisis. Loyalty to Syria is fragmenting among minorities who feel persecuted, ignored, and abandoned to their own luck. Even with Israeli attacks, the Syrian government maintained absolute silence. No direct condemnation, no mention of bombing. Ahmed Allah's strategy seems to be cold calculation, ignoring the attacks and minimizing inner chaos as a way of not exposing weaknesses. But the cost of this choice can be high. The southern Syria is becoming ingratiable. With the Sunni militias gaining space, the Druzes reacting hard, and the absent government, the vacuum of power is inevitable. Within Israel, the climate is of increasing tension. Israeli society is deeply divided into military involvement in Syrian territory. While many support the defense of the Druzes, others fear this drags the country to a new, even more dangerous regional conflict. Still, for the Israeli Druze community, this is not a matter of politics, it is a matter of survival. And the pressure continues to increase so that the government maintains its promise to protect its brothers across the border. The streets of Soweto remain taken. Control is no longer in the hands of the central government, but in those of Druze community leaders and local armed groups that organize themselves to maintain order, protect their families, and, above all, show that they will no longer accept submission to a government that does not represent them. The old administrative structure of the region collapsed. Police stations were abandoned, busy public buildings and courts replaced by local popular councils. The Druze people, known for their internal organization and loyalty between clans, turned the city into a symbol of resistance. In other parts of southern Syria, the domino effect began. Druze militias began to articulate in different villages, arming barricades and blocking roads to prevent advances of Sunni militia. The tension between communities increased to alarming levels, and direct confrontations became frequent. These are no longer simple reprisals. The country is on the brink of a sectarian war. The ghost of national fragmentation is around Syria again, and this time, there is no central force capable of freaking it out. Social networks have become the symbolic battlefield. Young Druzes broadcast the protests, clan meetings, and even the mourning ceremonies of the victims of the attacks. With firm voices and hardened looks, they directly accuse the government of betrayal. "We are Syrians, but we have been abandoned. We no longer want to serve a state that only uses us and then forgets us." These lines viralize, also echoing among the Druzes of Lebanon, Jordan, and Israel, where the feeling of unity goes beyond any political barrier. Within Israel, internal pressure on the government increased. Druze deputies and religious leaders require clear positioning and concrete actions. The hitherto cautious Netanyahu government has summoned emergency meetings with the military high command. The main concern: how to protect the Druze community without provoking a direct war with Syria. The dilemma is evident. A false step can trigger a chain reaction involving Iran, Hezbollah, and other active factions in the region. Still, there are signs that Israel is willing to go beyond words. Troops were moved to areas near the north border. Military exercises of readiness have been intensified, and although the government officially admits, there is evidence that intelligence missions are already operating on Syrian soil, providing logistic support and weapons to local Druze militias. The border has become a fine line between defense and intervention, and at any time this fragile balance can crumble. The climb seemed inevitable. When Sunni militias, armed with the support of transnational jihadist networks, advanced toward areas controlled by Druzes, the clashes exploded in intensity. In a few hours, more than 100 people were dead. Civil, combatants, and even members of the Syrian security forces who tried to intervene, but were quickly repelled or simply retreated in the face of chaos. A total vacuum of authority settled. The trigger of the conflict, which seemed to have been carefully planted, was a distributed audio on social networks. The recording, whose authenticity has never been proven, showed a supposed leader Druze criticizing the Prophet Muhammad offensive. Quickly, the recording went viral among extremist groups who used content as a justification to start a violent offensive against Druze villages. For many analysts, it is a weapon of misinformation, a pretext made with the sole purpose of provoking a sectarian war. Israel did not hesitate. In one of the boldest attacks of recent years, air forces have bombarded military facilities and logistics centers used by militias near the presidential palace in Damascus. The missiles hit strategic targets a few kilometers from the heart of Syrian power. The message was straightforward: the protection of the Druzes will be brought to the last consequences. The surprised Syrian government could not even respond militarily. His spokespersons were limited to vague notes, without even mentioning Israel by the name. At the same time, demonstrations took to the streets within the Israeli territory itself. Druze citizens blocked highways, marched with flags, and demanded from the government not only humanitarian aid but decisive military actions. The cry was clear: do not abandon our people. Solidarity extrapolated the borders. In Lebanon and Jordan, Druzoic communities performed vigils and protests. For the first time in decades, diaspora Druze joined a single cry for help and autonomy. Syrian President Ahmed Allah, a former jihadist commander who has risen to power in the mid-war political vacuum, is seen with extreme distrust by minorities such as Druze, Christians, and Alawites. His arrival in power, although disguised as a transition, represented for many the institutionalization of sectarianism. And now, in the face of the crisis, its absence only reinforces the feeling of abandonment. In Soweto, the Druzes not only resist, they reorganize their own form of government with tribal advice, their own flags and demands for autonomy. Israel, in turn, made it clear, any new aggression against Druzes will be answered hard. But there is also a limit. Many Syrians, although they thank protection, reject any attempt to attach or direct political interference. They want support, not guardianship. They want weapons, no domination. And this fragile equilibrium now shapes the new southern scenario of Syria, a region plunged into chaos, where the central government has lost control, the militias dispute each street, and the national identity fragments each day. South Syrian is experiencing a deep crisis, not just military, but moral, identity, and geopolitical. And in the epicenter of everything are the Druze, a millennial, persecuted, resistant, and now determined but invisible people. The war that started with a false audio may have paved the way for a complete reconfiguration of the region's political map.